I really want you to pull your objection frequency KPIs and look at what's actually raising these concerns. And it's almost never about the price. It's about the uncertainty and about the fit. It's about the outcome and whether or not the work specifically clearly defines what it is that you do and what it is that she's going to get. He or she is going to get. Then number two is the best discovery call is the one where you are digging so deep into these objections that you are handling these objections up front. You're handling them in the description of your offer before someone books a call.
Booked and unbothered, confidence and courage, mindset and messy middle moves of entrepreneurship.
Welcome to the Booked and Unbothered podcast, the podcast for high-value women navigating mindset, marketing, and messy middle moves of entrepreneurship. Here is where we turn clarity into cash and presence into power. I'm your host, Yarden Carroll, mother to 3 amazing boys, wife, storyteller, and brand engineer. Mic on? Let's get into it.
So just like we did in episode 1, we're going to start out with a very hard question that I want to ask. And it's because I've been on the wrong side of this for longer than I want to admit. So the question is, when a discovery call or a sales call does not convert, what's the first thing you tell yourself? And I really want you to be honest, because so many service providers go straight to the one of 3 places. And I want you to think about your last sales call. Did you automatically, if you didn't close that client, did you automatically associate that this person couldn't afford it, that the timing wasn't right, or that you need to work on your sales skills? Because I'm going to be honest here. A lot of the sales objections that you face on these calls have nothing to do with you. And I know this to be true, but I also know that the research confirms that most sales objections are not about what you think they are. And that's what we're going to talk about on episode 2 of the Booked and Unbothered podcast. And I want to get right into what this call is, or what this podcast is about. It's about the goal that you're sitting on, the value that you have with that information on your sales calls. And I really want to call it out that you have so much information on these sales calls that if you're not listening back and pulling the exact verbiage from those sales calls and using it in your content, you're missing out on a lot. If you're new here, my name is Yarden Carroll, and welcome to the Booked and Unbothered podcast. This is episode 2, and I am a marketing strategist, growth strategist for high-value service providers. And when I say high value, I mean coaches, creatives, consultants, service providers solving costly and urgent problems. So that's what I say. That's what I mean when I say high value. So let's get right into the research, because Apollo conducted a study in 2025. The research found that the biggest objection was not about price. A lot of it had to do with internal misalignment. And Gartner found that 61% of B2B buyers prefer a rep-free buying experience, which means most objections form before a rep is even contacted. Okay. So if you're in the B2B space, you have to nail this in your content up front. Okay, which means most service providers are going home after a lost call, practicing their pricing conversations and thinking that that's the problem, and wondering what happened after the 3 weeks somebody ghosted them. So I want to let that land for you and tell you that's not the case. So if you're new to me, my name is Yarden Carroll. I help experienced coaches and consultants and creatives package and position their offers so that they can sell them more confidently, clearly, consistently, and do it around their capacity. So I've had so many sales conversations over the last few years. And if I told you the amount of objections that I had and I took personally, you would not believe. So here's what I watch happen on repeat with a lot of my clients and a lot of the people that I know are business owners. Service providers get off these sales calls, discovery calls, and if they don't convert, they take them so personally. And I can't lie, I was one of those people where if I did not close a client, I immediately thought it was an issue with my sales skills, with my articulation. And one of the first things that I want to tell you is not to take it personal. And it wasn't that you're not compelling enough. It wasn't that the price was wrong. And it's not even about closing it. And I really want you to understand what the real problem, and it was not you on this call. And if you think about the last few calls you've had in the last week before the call, what did your content say? Or what did you produce in your content to pre-qualify these people you were getting on these calls with? Because in your offer description, if you left them uncertain, if your websites or your sales page, if the messaging described what you do without really diagnosing and talking to your ideal client in a way that makes her feel seen, feel heard, and where she feels like you're the next best thing, it doesn't matter if she booked this discovery call or not. She was looking for a way out because of the internal misalignment that you missed. You missed the opportunity in your content, in your messaging, on your website, on your sales page. So this had nothing to do with your inability to close the sales call. The best discovery call is one where you take the objections and you handle them before the call even starts. It doesn't matter how good your positioning is. It doesn't matter what your rebuttals are or how you handle objections. I need you to hear me and I need you to stay with me because we're going to talk about KPIs again on this episode because so many people won't give you the information that you need to look for. And it doesn't matter how good your offer KPIs are, but if you address these objections prior to the person getting on these discovery calls or sales calls, you're going to understand that it's not a you problem. Okay. So I want you to ask yourself, does your offer fit the current market? And the way you know this is through the various KPIs for the offer KPIs that I'm going to give you. And I got my handy dandy notebook here. So I'm going to be looking down. If you notice me looking out of the frame, is because I'm looking at my KPIs. The offer conversion KPIs I want to talk about is your offer conversion rate, your sales conversion rate, the proposal acceptance rate, the discovery call booking rate. What's your sales close rate? How long does it take for you to close? What's the objection frequency? What's the refund rate you have? What's the client completion rate of your services, of your courses? Because every one of those numbers tells you something significant and something very specific about your positioning and where it breaks down. And I really want to show you in this episode what your sales objections are telling you and the goal that you're sitting on. Okay. So today I'm going to show you how to read them and what the real reason is behind them. Okay. So real reason number one is a low discovery call booking rate plus a low close rate. So no matter who you talk to, if you have a low discovery call rate and a low close rate, it means that the person on the other end of that line does not trust you. They don't trust that you can produce the outcome and they don't think that it's possible for them. So even if you are clearly communicating what the outcome is, they don't trust you just yet. And it's not because you can't deliver. It's because that person has not received it yet. And there's a huge difference that I need you to really understand. There's the difference. And this is everything. Here's what those KPIs are telling you when someone books a call but they don't convert. Now, if you have a very low close rate, but it means that you're not convincing them prior to getting on the call. And people get on these calls because they're curious, but they're uncertain. And the uncertainty will definitely kill the deal. And you have to know your client, your ideal buyer. I call them MVP, most valuable prospect. You have to know them in and out. You have to know them so intimately. And you have to know what they've tried before, what's worked, what didn't work. You have to know what they've invested in. You have to know them so deeply because you ask these questions on these sales calls and you have to know what they've invested in that did not deliver. So it doesn't matter who they hired and what results they didn't see. It matters how you communicate and how you convey this messaging in your content before they get on this call. And it matters on your sales page. So think about how this person may be showing up and what they're carrying before they get on this call with you. Because this is really the deep and intimate knowledge that you have available to you on these sales calls. And I really need you to lean in and tell me, are you asking these types of questions on your sales calls? What if, because this is what your ideal client or your most valuable prospect is asking, what if this doesn't work for me? This is not about you. It's not about you. It's about whether or not this specific situation or specific problem that they have, if they can trust you enough to produce the results. And if your content, if your positioning has not specifically addressed who gets the results and why, then underneath all of these conditions, it doesn't matter if this person gets on the call or not. They're filled with this misalignment. And the silence, which is probably the worst case scenario, is that you have not done your due diligence by intimately knowing them inside and out, because vague positioning really creates this universal appeal to no one. If I'm being honest, there's zero conviction. And I want that to land with you, because here's what specificity does, specific positioning does. And this is the context. So I don't want you to say, I help service providers grow their revenue. Say something along the lines of, I work specifically with service providers who have been in business 2 to 5 years. Most discovery calls, if you're vague, the rate is going to decline. And if your content is getting that engagement, but you're not generating those qualified inquiries, then you need to be more diligent on the knowledge that you dig deeper and ask those deep questions to get those answers so you can communicate that in your content. And if you think about the content that's getting engagement, but it's not generating those qualified leads, whether they have an offer problem or not, whether it's the pricing or messaging, the real problem is more about the positioning, because it has not evolved depending on the price point, it has not evolved with the sophistication of the buyer and the sophistication of the market. So when you think about how specific your positioning is, I need you to understand that this person is reading blog articles. They've taken several courses. They've done the work. They've done the research, and they've invested their time. So when they read this or they listen to your content, they need to know that you're specifically talking to them at that right time at a specific price point, and it needs to resonate. So when they book the discovery call and that rate goes up, it's because that person felt qualified before they even booked. They knew that you were talking to them. They knew that this offer was for them. So by the time they get on the call, the real objection is those objections are already handled. So I really want you to think about the KPIs. So if you define the KPIs of success in your positioning, not just what you do, not just how you do, but what will this person measure in knowing it's working? I want you to think about that. So your discovery call rate is going to go up. And over the next 90 days, I want you to think about, has your discovery call rate gone up? Has your close rate gone up? Because you're creating this content that is speaking directly to them, because you're handling the objections prior to this person getting on the phone. So think about we talked about in last episode what your content to inquiry ratio looks like. And when your content or when your positioning is right, you have to understand that rate is going to go up versus the content you are creating and churning out versus the direct amount of people who are inquiring about what it is that you do. Then that's how you know you have nailed your positioning. So I need you to understand that looking at your sales calls is the best data that you have at your disposal, and you need to be using it in your content. Okay. So that's what I really want you to do. I really want you to look back at your last 10 sales calls and see what is happening as far as what your content to creation and inquiry rate is for the last 90 days, and pull that data from your back end. Pull that data and tell me how many clients you've closed, and then tell me how much content you've produced before that first inquiry came in. Okay. And the real reason your sales objection or your sales calls are gold is I need you to understand that you can have a high proposal rate, but the frequency of objections, you're having more objections in one call. So I need you to know what that equates to. So that person doesn't have enough information from you to justify the investment. So it's not just about you. It's not about you. It's about the MVP. And this is really one of the most missed opportunities that I see service providers, the misuse of their data. So you can have a high proposal rate, but have an extremely high objection frequency. And I've even seen some people not even have a sales process. But if you have a sales process, you should know what your proposal acceptance rate is, and you should also know what your objection frequency is. How many objections are you getting on this call? Some people are saying it's the time, it's the money. They don't think it's going to work for them. So you got 3 objections in one call. So go back to your last 10 sales calls and record the objection frequency. Okay. So here's what that pattern would look like is your proposal acceptance rate is decent. People are inquiring, they're interested, but the calls have a high objection frequency, meaning they get on a call with a lot of questions, a lot of hesitations, and a lot of, I need to think about it. So before you get a yes, they're hesitant. And the pattern is really telling you something specific that I need you to know. That if someone arrived on this sales call underinformed, but interested, but not ready, that's an opportunity for you to take that information and address those silent objections up front in your content, in your long form post, in your video content. And the call is only doing the work to make them make a decision on whether or not you guys are a right fit for each other. And your offer description should have done a lot of the work up front. Your content should have done a lot of the heavy lifting. But if the person you're talking to is not convinced or they don't have that conviction, they're not just buying this for themselves. Okay. So there's a front facing issue here that this person is making a decision that they'll have to explain to, depending on what your offer is and who your most valuable prospect is. They're not just making a decision for themselves. If they're making the decision for their family, they're making the decision for their board. And if they can't explain this to the inner committee or the inner person, her past self who got burned, or the practical person who is managing their money, or the scared version of their person because they don't want to be wrong again, it's not that she's objecting to the price. They're objecting to the uncertainty. And I really need that to land for you because your offer, your messaging, your marketing, your positioning needs to handle a lot of these objections up front. It has nothing to do with the price point. And we talked about this the first episode where if you are clearly conveying what the opportunity cost of staying stuck, if that opportunity cost is greater than them investing in the solution that you offer, then they're not objecting to you or your offer or to the price point. They're objecting to the uncertainty because you have not done your due diligence by communicating what it is that you do, how you do it, who it's for, and what the specific outcome is going to be for them. Okay. So I'm going to pause there because I want that to land. And I want to describe what uncertainty looks like for people when they show up on these sales calls or when you're in direct conversation with them, what this looks like. Many people may not have a timeline. They don't know when they want to solve this problem. And they don't know that this problem is that urgent because you have not done a good enough job communicating that. So if this person doesn't know the timeline, if they don't know what they're going to get in the end, what the end result is going to be, if they don't know what the KPIs are to track to know whether or not this is working for them, you haven't done a good job conveying that. If they don't know what's required of them to show up, and if they don't know what success looks like, because you have to have those small wins embedded into your curriculum, your content, your coaching program, your consulting offer. You have to have those consistent small wins built into it. It doesn't matter if it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days out. If this person is arriving on this call and they are trying to figure this out and they're asking those questions in real time, this is going to increase your objection frequency because you have not done your due diligence by communicating and conveying that in your marketing efforts. And ultimately, that objection frequency is going to extend the time it takes to close, where you're having more than one follow-up call, and it's very expensive. And one of the most expensive positioning problems is because you're not doing your marketing and your sales work in the same conversation. That is something that you should do upfront. And the fix is a clearer offer. Your offer really needs to be so niche and so clearly defined that when they get on this call, they know exactly what's included. They know exactly what they're going to get. They know exactly what the outcome is going to be. And they know what they're going to have at the end. So they're not asking the questions on whether or not this is going to work for them. They also know what's required and what those specific key performance indicators, KPIs, are going to tell them if it's working and the conditions under which this works. That's something you, as a service provider, have to do up front so that when you get on these sales calls, all the objections and all the questions are answered. All they need to know is, are you the right fit for me? And then you're asking if they're the right fit for you. So I want you to think about if you are giving this information to them before the call, then your objection frequency on your call should drop. Your objection frequency in totality should drop. And the time that it takes for you to close a sales call or a sales conversation, that should also shorten. Your proposal exception or acceptance rate should go up because the real objections were handled in your offer description, in your messaging, in your positioning, in your marketing content. So I really want you to write that down. You will see your objection frequency drop and the time that it takes to close the sales cycle, it's going to shorten because your proposal acceptance has gone up. And because you have done your due diligence by handling these objections up front in your offer, in your marketing, in your messaging, in your positioning. So I would really write that down. And the third and final reason, the real reason that you are having an issue and with your sales calls, you may have a strong referral rate, but you have a low win rate of those referrals. And it's not because this person doesn't trust you, because they took the referral. They definitely trust you. It's more of them not being convinced that they understand, that you understand their specific problem. So this is probably one of those ones that kills most deals for the underpositioned expert. And I want to name the pattern that I see is that you have a very strong referral rate. People are talking to you about what it is that you do. They're sending others to you. They're recommending you, but your overall win rate of those referrals is very, very low. And if we're comparing you to someone else in your industry, you to one of your competitors, and you want to know why they chose them over you, you have to be very clear about what the diagnosis is. Referral rate is very strong, but the rate at which you're winning those referrals is very low. So the pattern that I want to talk to you about is the people trusting you enough to mention your name in these rooms, but your positioning is not differentiated enough to win over your competitors, okay? Especially when we're talking about a more sophisticated, more discerning buyer. They have options, the buyer that you serve. They have options. They've heard about you. They've heard about your competitors. They like what they've heard, but when they go to make a decision, they are comparing you to someone else. And what they can't clearly articulate is why you specifically are the right choice for them and for that specific problem. And that's because you have not diagnosed their specific problem peers. So I look back on a lot of my sales calls from 2025, and I closed a lot of sales last year. But on the ones that I did not close, I was very generic. I was very I was making very broad claims about what it is that I do and what it is that I can help them with. And when they got on a call with me, I still wasn't clear. So when these objections came up and I dug deeper, and I'm talking about dug deeper as in I went and listened to my past sales calls. I was trying to handle the objections on the call when the real work could have been done and diagnosed in my content. So I really had to dig deep and ask myself so many questions on whether or not I was diagnosing the problem that they have or whether I was describing it. And the real work was about diagnosing the silent objections, the silence that they had underneath all of that. What was my ideal client carrying, right? So I want you to think about what it sounds like in a sales conversation. So I'm gonna give you a scenario. So let's say you say, based on what you shared with me, here's what I think is actually happening. Your content to inquiry ratio is declining. Your referral rate is strong, meaning people understand what it is you do. They know you're good at what you do and they want to work with you, but your inbound discovery call booking rate is very low. So you came in thinking it was a messaging problem. But what I'm hearing is not a messaging problem. What I hear is a positioning. And the market has gotten so sophisticated and your positioning has not evolved with the sophistication of the market. And when I regurgitate that to her, they don't know. This person didn't know that they had a positioning problem. They came in calling it something else. And at that moment, I named it so accurately that moment I diagnosed what it is that they're actually going through. My sales rate, my referral rate, my win rate has gone up, drastically increased. And it's not because it wasn't about the pitch. It was, I proved that I understood exactly what her situation was and I understood it better than she could articulate it herself. I knew something was wrong. She named the problem and I named it so well that she thought that I must have had a PhD in what it is that she does. And that diagnosing or that diagnostic gave me all of the tea. And I was able to dig so deep into my sales calls that I saw how much value and how much gold I was sitting on. So that is the moment when you start to convert more. It's not the pitch that follows. The practicality is the KPIs and what do you do with the KPIs? So what I really want you to do after listening to this episode is I want you to go back and look at your last 10 sales calls, okay? I want you to be able to pull these KPIs and I want you to look at them honestly. I want you to look at this honestly. What is your content to inquiry ratio? I want you to think about how many pieces of content you've created over the last 90 days and how many of these conversations turned into qualified conversations. How many of them booked discovery calls? How many people, what's the percentage of people who saw your content and inquired actually booked discovery calls? And then of those discovery calls, how many did you close? And I really want to know of those people who got on a call, how many of them converted? Then I want you to apply the growth constraint diagnostic. That's the content to inquiry ratio. Is it high, but is your discovery call booking rate low? That's how you know you have a positioning constraint. Is your content creating awareness, but not creating that urgency to make them book that call? And I want you to I want you to look at if your discovery call booking rate is decent. Is it your close rate? Is it low? Of those calls, what's the objection frequency on those calls? What's the objection frequency over the last 10 sales calls? That's how I want you to know if you have an offer constraint. Your offer description is not doing enough of the pre-qualifying before someone gets on a call. And then I want you to look at the close rate. And the close rate, it can be decent, but if your win rate against your competitors is low, and this may be one of the hardest ways to compare, but just look at, and this is where feedback loops come in, where you're asking who they've invested in and who why it didn't work or why it wasn't a good fit. It's okay to ask those questions. I need you to understand that when you compare to your competitors, if your close rate is decent, but someone is investing in someone else, that's a differentiation problem. So your positioning and your differentiation is not specific enough to win, especially when the market is more sophisticated and these buyers are more discerning. So none of these are sales problems. All of these are positioning problems. And the positioning needs to get fixed up front. Okay. So if I summarize what the key takeaways from this episode is, the three are: one is most sales objections are not about price. I really want you to pull your objection frequency KPIs and look at what's actually raising these concerns. And it's almost never about the price. It's about the uncertainty and about the fit. It's about the outcome and whether or not the work specifically clearly defines what it is that you do and what it is that she's going to get. He or she is going to get. Then number two is the best discovery call is the one where you are digging so deep into these objections that you are handling these objections up front. You're handling them in the description of your offer before someone books a call. And if we talk about what the definition of what these KPIs is, you have to give these people a timeline. You have to clearly define what short-term wins look like for them so you can reduce this uncertainty before they get on the phone with you. And number three is, after every lost call or sales call, you need to you have to pull your numbers. You have to think about how much content have you created? Are you creating before you get that first inquiry? And your discovery call booking rate. What's the close? What's the close rate? Those numbers will tell you exactly where the positioning broke down. And then you have to fix it up front. So if today's episode called something out for you, I really want you to share it with your friend, a business bestie, someone who who could possibly be struggling with this. And I'm going to open up and extend my inbox for you to come in, talk to me, DM me on LinkedIn, DM me on Facebook. Tell me if this landed and tell me why, because I read every message. And ultimately, my goal is to get you to subscribe and to share this information, because women need to know, business owners need to know what the data says to them and how to interpret it. So next week, we're going to talk less about KPIs, more about specifically what my high achieving business owners, what you are dealing with, especially in navigating in this messy middle. And we're going to call out the perfectionism and the myths around perfectionism, because it's not actually what you think it is. So I want you to subscribe so you don't miss a thing, don't miss a beat. All of my social media profiles will be linked in the show notes. I really want you to think about this information that I gave you. Tell me if it landed, and please contact me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and let me know what landed. And let's have this conversation. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.